There are some things that you can do. There's typically at 4 years old, if they're not sleeping through the night, the main cause of this, so the majority of kids are having what's called behavioral insomnia of childhood. And there's actually a couple of different subtypes. One of them is limit setting, and the other one is sleep association or sleep onset association. And so what happens with these, the limit setting kind of describes itself. So little kids, especially 4-year-olds, starting at 2, they like to push the boundaries. They like to have their way. They're a little bit stubborn sometimes. And so setting very good boundaries, especially around bedtime and how it's going to happen, being very consistent and patient with those boundaries can be very beneficial to the child and also their sleep. The other type of behavioral insomnia is sleep onset association. So this one's a little more tricky. Kids, their subconscious or their little brains, it'll pick something in their environment and they'll associate sleep with that something. For example, if your child loves a Binky and they fall asleep with a Binky and you put them to sleep, they fall asleep with the Binky and they're doing great. And then the Binky falls out of their mouth and it falls out of the crib and they can't get it. Then they're up and they're screaming and they want mom because they can't find their Binky and they need that Binky to fall back asleep. That's a sleep association. So the tricky part of that is trying to figure out what is it that they're associating with falling asleep. Now, there are lots and lots of other problems that can cause difficulties in sleeping in 4-year-olds. But those are kind of the two most common. I recommend to all my parents, whenever they come in, whenever we have sleep problems, there's a book that I love called How to Solve Your Child's Sleep Problems. It's by Dr. Ferber. He was a sleep specialist at Harvard, I believe, at Boston Children's Hospital. Hopefully I'm remembering that correctly. And this book, it's a little long. It's kind of like a textbook. So if you hate reading books, I apologize. Typically, you can go through the first 4 to 5 chapters and it's enough. But it really gets into some details about like finding out, okay, what is it that's causing my child to have difficulty sleeping? And then coming up with a plan to help them fall asleep a little bit better. So I think that most parents that have actually been able to sit down and go through this book and use it, come back to me and they say it's a life saver because then suddenly everybody's sleeping and life is so much better. So that's typically where I start with the sleep problems.